reminding me to do. So appreciate that. All right, let's blast off. And Dr. Wright and Darlene, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody for taking some time on Saturday afternoon on the holiday weekend for being with us. And for my family and friends that have trusted me through the years with some of their health choices, I truly appreciate that. I got a call the other day from one of the attendees who's actually not on the phone call yet, but she says she will be. She thinks she knows what inflammation is, but she's not really sure. She didn't remember from biology in high school. And she said, can you just help me remind me what inflammation is? Well, actually, there's two kinds of inflammation. You have acute and chronic. Say you scratch your arm. Well, acute inflammation with a chemical sent to them, chemical that says, all right, we need some help down here. Well, the blood vessels dilate a little bit and increase red blood cells, white blood cells, macrophages, different enzymes and chemicals and nutrients are rushed to this little scratch on your arm. Well, its job is to stop the bleeding and start laying a matrix down to protect itself and to start the healing process. Well, that's a good inflammation. The problem is sometimes our body doesn't get that second call that says, that's enough, you can stop now. So by definition, chronic inflammation is whatever inflammation occurs to that injury or to that spot, to that area, once the original inflammation or the acute inflammation is no longer needed. The problem is it might last with a chronic inflammation and may last a few minutes. It could maybe last the rest of our life. Let's just stay with that, our arm, and say, well, if our body doesn't receive that message, that chronic inflammation is going to stay under that scratch. The problem is that inflammation doesn't stay under that scratch. Our body sends more responses to that area, and next thing we know, now we have that chronic inflammation floating around in our bloodstream. Now, and any place that our bloodstream goes, that chronic inflammation will be there. If you look at chronic inflammation, researchers and physicians have told us for years that it's one of the causative agents in many, many of our diseases and conditions. And if it's not a causative agent, it's a complicating agent, which means it makes it more difficult to treat that problem than it would have been without that chronic inflammation. The quiet killer, chronic inflammation, is amazing. The researchers have found chronic inflammation in many kinds of dementia, kidney disease. They have found that it's involved with not just arthritis and joint pain and joint problems and backaches. They have discovered that chronic inflammation may be the causative agents, along with some other factors that can turn off and on genes in our body. That's amazing. Well, that's my little brief view of what inflammation is, and hopefully that helps some of the people who may or may not remember what inflammation can be. But not long ago, I get a phone call and a package from a man named Harold James, but ours. And he tells me that he's thinking about representing this new anti-inflammatory supplement. He says, I'd like y'all to try it and tell me what you think. He says, it can be quantitative. It can be quantified by using a blood test so you can actually see what it's doing with the balance of omega-3 and omega-6 in our body. And I said, well, sure, it just so happens my wife's hips are killing her. My knee's waking me up, and I've got a chiropractor Monday for my sciatica. So, yeah, I would say this is probably a pretty good idea. So we start taking this supplement. I get on the phone. I'm invited to some Zoom calls, and I'm talking to people and learning more and more every day. And I said, well, maybe there's more to this supplement than I think. Well, Monday rolls around, and I go to the chiropractor, and I know the man knows what he's doing. He tells me, gives me a diagnosis, and he gives me a prognosis of what to expect. He says it may take more than just a couple of visits. And I said, I understand. Let's get cracking, you know? So he starts his adjustments and I get no real relief. Wednesday, I go back and there's still no relief. I go back Friday and it's still the same. I go back Monday and maybe there's a little bit better and maybe it's not. By Wednesday, I can start to feel a little change. By Friday, it's a noticeable change. I mean, I'm still taking my 6 Advil extra strength dual action Tylenol, but you know, it's still got me kind of on fire. Well, Darlene comes home from her trip to Washington, D.C. and says, can you drive me to Mar-a-Lago on Monday? Oh, I said, yeah, I can be to Mar-a-Lago. Well, that's 4 hours of driving there and 4 hours back, plus an hour driving around. Because I've never been to West Palm, and let me tell you, that place is impressive. We come home and I'm beat, and I go to bed. Well, the next morning I get up, I take my blood pressure pills, but guess what? I didn't take any damn Advil. Darlene says, you know what? My hip hurt me in a week. Now, we've only been taking this additive or this supplement for really a little bit less than 3 weeks, or that's right at 3 weeks. I had a wonderful chiropractor working in harmony with this medication for 2 weeks. And there's a huge, huge change. I don't remember the last time my knee woke me up. And when my wife said her hips don't hurt anymore, that thrilled me to no end. So I figured right then and there, I said, if this product did that to us in 3 weeks, what could it do for me for the next 10 or 15 years? I'm 74. I'm a realist. I'd be happy with 15. And then I get thinking, I said, man, what if this product was around when I was 20? What would the inside of my body look like then? You know, what could this have prevented me to have to go through when I try to get up and I'm crooked for about 6 or 8 steps until I can straighten up? You know, I may not have had to go through all that. It's just an amazing, amazing product. My granddaughter, about a little over a year ago, she's 11 years old. She says, Grandpa, I want you to come watch me ride the horse at my next lesson. I said, okay. So the next lesson, I show up. Here she is in her little riding outfit, her boots, her helmet, and everything. She comes over to me, and she looks up at me with all the swagger that any football player, any baseball player wish they had. She says, Grandpa, be prepared to be impressed. Well, I kept a straight face as I adjusted her helmet, but that little girl impressed me right then. So I'm going to turn this meeting over to John Cini. John is an Army veteran, has worked full-time in the direct sales since 1990. 17 years he spent with his first company. This is a big company. It's publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. He was one of the first 400 reps to earn a career income of $1 million with that company. In 1998, his story was published in the book, Your First Year in Network Marketing by Mark L. Since then, he's built multiple networks and tens of thousands of members, generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And basically, for the last 25 years, he's been focused on the nutritional industry for the last 25 years. He and his wife, Leah, and their kids live in Houston, Texas. So with everybody's permission, I'm going to turn this thing over to John Cini. And like my granddaughter said, be prepared to be impressed.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you, Dr. Wright, and thanks for sharing your story. And it's been just a pleasure in the last couple of weeks to get to know you and Darlene, and look forward to many years of happy, fun building here with Zinzino. So I plugged in here, as I mentioned earlier, to a bunch of you. A few of you just joined us. Welcome. If you're a guest here, today is for you, and boy, are you about to get a treat. One of my favorite people in the entire industry. I actually just met him 3 months ago, and we have become fast friends. He is an absolute powerhouse of critical information. He's actually been in that role. I have to give him credit for decades. Stuart Tomc is a veteran of the nutrition industry. He's been responsible for over $1 billion. Yeah, that's billion with a B as in Bravo, of supplements moving worldwide. And, you know, we've got a national audience on here. I think we're covering half of the entire United States. So appreciate all of you joining us. But I met Stuart back at the end of January, and it was really incredible when I saw his credentials. He was the global ambassador, basically the company spokesman for the world's largest omega-3 supplement company, Nordic Naturals. He's been featured on Fox News, on Newsmax, on dozens and dozens of podcasts. He's made over 6,000 radio, TV, and podcast appearances. So he is not new to public speaking. And the fact that we have him on here with an audience of, you know, a couple dozen people is spectacular. And one of the things that, as I've gotten to know Stuart, one of the things I really love best about him is he is so willing to help anybody that he can. And it is clearly his mission to be a force for good in helping people change their lives in terms of their health. And now I can also add to that their wealth, because with his info, when you see the changes that you're able to make, then you're going to want to go and share that info with other people. And that's going to help everybody have a tremendous success. I do want to add one quick thing, and then I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to Stuart. When Dr. Wright talked about some of the things he's seen, the benefits, I can tell you my own story in two numbers. First, test of my ratio. See, we say test, don't guess. You don't have to wonder if the product is working because we can measure. So when I got my blood tested the first time, I was 23 to 1. Now, ideally, you want to be 1 to 1, and Stuart's going to talk more about this in detail. But realistically, we call the safe zone 3 to 1, 3 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. I was 23 to 1. I was actually worse than the USA average of 50,000 people right now, a little less than that, just almost 50,000. Which is 22.5 to 1. I was 23 to 1. But in 2 months, on my second retest, I got that thing down to 3.3 to 1 using this company's product. So boom, there you go. That's my little story. All right, Stuart, Tomc, take it away from San Diego, California.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. Wright and Darlene, for having me here. It's such an honor. And I want to just thank you, Dr. Jim, for setting the stage and reminding everybody about inflammation. That was so beautiful and well said. And I hope everybody got that. That's really what we're talking about here today. We're going to go into a deep dive of Zinzino and the products. And I have a whole lot of content and a lot of slides. But what Dr. Jim said about inflammation and how this is a test to determine the most important number for health and longevity that you don't know, that you should know, the balance between omega-6 and omega-3, when you just get how fundamental this is for health, for every human being, you see how big the mission is, you see how incredible the test is. All you have to be able to say to somebody is, my left fist is omega-6. It's essential. Our bodies don't make it. We have to get it from our diet. My right fist is omega-3. It's essential. Our bodies don't make it. We have to get it from our diet, and we need them in balance for a healthy inflammatory response. Would you like a test that can tell you whether or not your diet is working? Whether or not you're in the safe zone or the danger zone? I want you just to kind of sense that before we go through all of the science, because I know it was Dr. Jim, and I knew we would have other professionals on the call too. We're going to teach to the top of the class, but we're going to have fun doing it. Zinzino means a small piece with great value. That's what we're here to give you. many small pieces with great value. And the mission of Zinzino is to become the biggest preventative health company in the world. Let that sit in for a second. The biggest preventative health company in the world. And really, they're the masters of these at-home blood spot tests. So we've got the omega-6/3 test, the proxy for systemic inflammation, vitamin D, like David test, an A1C blood sugar test, a leaky gut test coming, a test for micronutrient deficiency in the way. So that's why we will be the biggest preventative health company in the world. Reinvent the nutritional space, measurably move the dial on public health globally. And we're already in 47 countries around the world. We can ship to 100 countries. So we all want to have a healthy life. This balance between omega-6 that is essential, that our bodies don't make, that's inflammatory, is something we can modify with our diet. Omega-6s, again, inflammatory. Omega-3s, anti-inflammatory. We want them in balance. And over the years, our diet has gone from where there was a balance between omega-6 and omega-3 to now the average person in America tests at 22 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. That does not set the stage for a healthy inflammatory response. You're like staying alive, not. You have to be in balance if you want to optimize the benefit of omega-3. And when we are out of balance, like 99% of people on this call, it reduces brain function, hair quality decreases, it reduces heart function, skin loses its elasticity, there's reduced organ function, joint and muscle pain. And this has now been known for a while. I mean, I've got to thank my professor, Dr. William E. Lands, some of the other pioneers in the space. They've been talking about this for a long time. What happens on a fundamental cellular level when we go from out of balance into balance? On the left side of the slide, in the cell membrane, and even intracellularly as well with the organelles, but in that cell membrane, that's where all the omega-6s and omega-3s are. And if you don't have enough omega-3 in the cell membrane, you have more saturated fats, the kind your body makes, and cholesterol, and it makes the cell membrane hard and rigid. When we can get back into balance between pro-inflammatory omega-6 and anti-inflammatory omega-3, we can restore the structure and the function of each and every one of our cells. It's so much further upstream, and we never knew what the safe zone was. Remember, with omega-3, we would say, take cod liver oil, or take krill oil, or take 2 capsules. Now we know what the target range is. Now we know what the biomarker is. We want to have a 3-part maximum omega-6 to 1 part omega-3, and then an omega-3 index, which you'll learn about, of like 8%. And that's how you know if you're getting the maximum benefit from omega-3. So Dr. Jim just broke it down beautifully. In 2004, every lecture we gave at Nordic Naturals all over the world, we showed the Time magazine cover, The Secret Killer, right? The book that was written by Dr. Joe Maroon, Fish Oil, the Natural Anti-Inflammatory, right? And we learned the difference between taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories versus lowering the omega-6 and increasing the omega-3 for a healthy inflammatory response. But it still hasn't stuck yet. Last year, National Geographic published The Science of Inflammation and Ways to Treat It. This is the optimal way to test it. So the balance that we're holding our fists up about for the doctors and the scientists and the citizen scientists like myself, it's the balance between arachidonic acid, which is largely pro-inflammatory, and omega-3 EPA, that produce the anti-inflammatory hormone-like compounds. So the safe zone is 3-to-1, and just April 11th, finally, the Office of Dietary Supplements updated their guidance on omega-3 for preterm and early preterm birth prevention. One of the questions we get is, we've been hearing this story for a long time, but why isn't there a recommendation yet for EPA and DHA? There finally is as of April 11th, just to let you know how new this is. They say the agency recommends that all women of childbearing age receive at least 250 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams of DHA daily. That's the first time that a major agency of the US government has finally officially recognized that omega-3 can reduce the risk for a human health condition. So now is the time for this message. Zinzino is a solutions-based company. They have some of the best and brightest in nutrition. For the omega-3 lovers, it's made at a place in Iceland that's been around since 1938. And they combine, and you'll hear about this, the highest quality omega-3 and super high polyphenolic rich olive oil together in their patented formula. And our chief science officer, Dr. Paul Clayton, who coined the term pharmaconutrition at Cambridge 30 years ago, he's our chief science officer, writes in his article From Algae to Omega, which is also the name of one of his papers, that the problem with fish oil is that when they remove the mercury, they strip out all of the polyphenols. The polyphenols are the circle on the outside of that algae. That polyphenol on the outside is the antioxidant that protects the omega-3 and ensures that it gets into your tissue. He figured out and wrote about it extensively that when you strip out mercury with all commercial fish oil, you're stripping out the polyphenols and you're leaving it there denatured. It's not the same as eating fish. That's why it's not as effective. And when you put the polyphenols back together, that's why you hear stories like you did from Dr. Jim Wright, from myself, from everyone that's ever used omega-3s before, because it's not omega-3, it's balance oil. And until we understand your number, and until we take a second test over 120 days, and until we give you the oil based on your body's weight, we're not going to really have the full benefit of omega-3. So our question is, do you want to find out if you're in the danger zone? Do you want a solution? This is where the test samples go. They get sent to Vitas Analytical Services. This is in the Science Center in Oslo, Norway. They've been there for 30 years. They've done 2 million anonymous blood spot tests. So when you take the test, the data is totally blinded. There's a little card. You don't write your name or your email on there, and then you type into the website and you give them your number, and then you get your results emailed back to you. So it's totally anonymous. And we've tested people all over the world and found that 97% on average fail the test. This is the modifiable risk factor to understand inflammation. So just March of this year, Dr. Artemis Simopoulos sounded the alarm and sent a white paper to the White House about this dangerous imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3. That's what we're testing. And she says, our research clearly shows that this imbalance is a major contributor to obesity, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, neurodegenerative conditions, compromised immune function. There's a letter of a copy of it from Dr. Artemis Simopoulos to the Office of the President, to the Honorable Secretary of Health and Human Services, and the Honorable Secretary of Defense. And it said, among the white paper's urgent findings are that the omega-6 heavy American diet, and I know that the seed oils are getting beaten up right now, but if you stopped eating all the seed oils and ate nothing but beef tallow, we still would not have the right balance between omega-6 and omega-3, the pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory fat. We're finally having this conversation. So it's the fact that we're not eating 300 pounds of cold water oily fish. That's what it would take. And look at what they say. Military readiness and cognitive resilience are threatened by poor fatty acid balance. The imbalance overstimulates the body's endocannabinoid system, worsening obesity, inflammation, and mental health disorders, especially in youth. This isn't just a health issue. It's a matter of national security. Our armed forces, children, and general population are impacted. Cognitive function, resilience, and readiness are compromised by dietary decisions that can and must be reversed. I just hope that that stresses how timely this solution is. And one of the doctors that's on our team, Dr. Michael Lewis, MD, West Point grad, Army Ranger, MD, MPH, MBA, is the author of Suicide Death of Active Duty U.S. Military and Omega-3 Fatty Acid Status, a case-controlled comparison. It's the only paper on the subject. If you were a soldier and you saw another soldier killed, you had a 50% increased risk of committing suicide. If you had a documented history of a mental health situation, which few reported, it was like 52%. Among men, the risk of suicide death was 62% with low omega-3 status. Their ratio was 25-1. Dr. Lewis is on the team. He's the author of When Brains Collide. His mission is to change the world. He brought tests like this to the Pentagon, to the top, and they weren't ready to do it yet. So we're part of his volunteer army, just so you understand, right, of public health. And the latest science says exactly what Zinzino has been saying. Look at the headline. It's the imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 that affects your early death risk. Anyone can get that. Higher omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is associated with a greater risk of dying. Here's the paper. Higher ratio of plasma omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid is associated with a greater risk of all-cause cancer and cardiovascular mortality. This is from the UK Biobank. They looked at 85,000 people in this cohort. In the Progress in Lipids Research 2024 World Map, everything red is totally in the danger zone. Look at North America. This is a huge public health issue. Last year, in the leading journal on omega-3, this supplementation to reduce aggression in children and adults, irrespective of whether the setting is in the community, the clinic, or the criminal justice system. They finally are saying, after a meta-analysis, all the data's in, that it's a safe, cheap, and healthy intervention to reduce aggression. That's what we're doing. We can get you back into balance in 120 days with a before and after test. Here's how they did it. They took 60% pure high-grade fish oil made from anchovies, sardines, and mackerel, natural triglyceride form, and combine it with super high polyphenolic-rich extra virgin olive oil during the manufacturing. The polyphenols wrap around the omega-3s just like in algae. It's a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. It is different than any other omega-3 product. When you look at it, it's a full spectrum omega-3 product. So it has EPA, DHA, DPA, and omega-7. We have a vegan formula. There are people that say I'm a vegan. So we have an algae-derived EPA, DHA with ALA and GLA and SDA, full spectrum. When you look at the literature and look to combine the olive oil with omega-3, you find that the Journal of the American Medical Association said there was a 28% lower risk of dementia-related death eating 7 grams a day of olive oil. When you look at the olive oil reviews, we all know that there's fake olive oil out there. Well, what they're looking for at consumerlab.com is the ratio and the percentage of these polyphenols. The highest they found was 654. The Zinzino product is 750. So that makes it the highest polyphenolic rich olive oil out there, but we have one that's even higher concentration. This one has 2,650. The highest the consumer lab tested was 650. This is our super deluxe combination. So that's equivalent to eating 30 piles of anchovies and 1,200 pre-harvest olives in one bottle. We own 49% of the operation in Cyprus where the olive oil comes from. And when you look into the literature and say, now where's the evidence to combine these polyphenols and omega-3? This paper shows that the combination of the polyphenols and omega-3 can lead to a 3-fold increase in glutathione peroxidase activity. That's the enzyme that makes glutathione, as well as a 50 to 200% attenuation of common inflammation biomarkers as compared to their individual capacities, just like Dr. Jim was talking about. So the anti-inflammatory power here is very different than taking fish oil or olive oil by itself. And when you combine them together into the balance oil, this is where we heat it to 250 degrees and put oxygen in there. The balance oil lasts for 35 hours. Krill oil falls apart in 5 hours. Concentrated fish oil, 9 hours. What does this mean? It's infinitely more stable in the bottle and in your body, because it's also able to bring these prebiotics, that's what the polyphenols are, and omega-3, which is also a prebiotic, way deep into the gut. And when you look at the data, polyphenols and omega-3s, look at the conclusion. The consumption of vegetables, fruits, seeds, and fish and or supplements rich in polyphenols and omega-3s is widely correlated with reducing of obesity. So in the ultra-processed diet, we just don't have enough omega-3. We don't have the polyphenols. And again, when you keep going back to the literature, look at this graphic abstract with the olive and the fish. Natural polyphenols present in marine oils play an essential role in protecting omega-3 lipids from oxidation and auto-oxidation, ensuring that no pro-inflammatory products are formed. Look at this. After intake, as often happens with assumption of refined omega-3 concentrates, what are they saying? What we're seeing is that denatured fish oil, where they molecularly distill it, they put vitamin E and leave it like every big brand, like Nordic or every other company, that may be depleting your body's antioxidants, where balance oil does not do that. It gets you back into balance, and it triples the enzyme that produces glutathione. So here's some results. Look at that before and after picture. I've never seen that with omega-3. That is remarkable. That's the combination of the polyphenols and the omega-3 together. Here's our original science on the finished branded product with our chief science officer as the lead author: fish oil, polyphenols, and physical performance. This was a European football soccer team. We are a Scandinavian company. By the end of the intervention, they were able to reduce the average omega-6-3 ratio from 12:5 to 3.5. The rate of absenteeism due to infection and injury was reduced by 85 and 57%. An 85% reduction in infection because they had a healthier inflammatory response, because they were balanced, contributing to improved performance, morale, and position in the league on a cellular level, and it impacted the game. Now, we've tested people all over the world. In the United States, we've only tested 44,000 people. When we test 1.5% of America, like we have in Scandinavia, that's $1 billion in revenue. when we test 1.5% of the United States. We've only tested a fraction of the United States. Look at our score. Our average score is 22.6 to 1. After the balance oil, they come down to 3.5 to 1. That is a 44,000 real world examples, and there are almost 2 million. That is how persuasive. Here's Canada. We've only tested 3,000 people there, 3,746. Huge opportunity here in North America, the biggest in the world. We were already a household name in Norway. Now we're here. Look at Sweden. We've tested 140,000 people. They come down to 10.2 to 1. I'm sorry, they start at 10.2 to 1. They come down to 2.7. They eat more fish than we do in Sweden. Here's India. We've only tested 2,000 people in India. They start at 40.7. That's so far out of balance. And they come down to 4.1. Are you seeing how consistent this is? Of almost 2 million tests around the world, this is what we're seeing. Here's Japan. They start at 7.6 to 1. They eat so more fish than any one culture. And they still are out of balance. They get on the balance oil, they get down to 2.9 to 1. Now, if you pass the first test, the company gives you back your money. People almost never pass the first test. It is rare, but that removes the objection. So here's a perfect example of someone who was taking omega-3, was convinced they would pass the test. They were taking an omega-3 supplement every single day and eating a high omega-3 rich diet. And this person was not eating any processed food and was not eating seed oils and scored 23 to 1. After 120 days, look at those test results. From 23 to 1 to 1.8 to 1. That is the power of what Zinzino has to offer. Because now this person has optimal protection value, the ideal omega-3 index. If we can get people on the omega-3 index from 4 to 8, just right from red to green, it correlates to a 40% reduction in risk. It's twice as predictive as LDL cholesterol, which we all know is problematic now. This omega-3 index and this balance score is the next biomarker for health and longevity, and it's the single most modifiable risk factor. So on the home stretch here, at the higher level of cardiology, the European Heart Journal 2 years ago, 2023, published some breakout results from the biggest trial done on omega-3. Okay, and now you've learned what we're measuring, omega-6 and omega-3, right? The balance. We're measuring EPA, that's the omega-3, and arachidonic acid, that's the omega-6. So EPA and AA and triglyceride levels mediate most of the benefit of omega-3 in the REDUCE-IT trial. Again, this is what we're measuring. The balance between pro-inflammatory omega-6 in every one of your red blood cells relative to anti-inflammatory omega-3 EPA. And in their poster session, they showed that the 25% reduction in major adverse coronary events, that's called MACE, on top of standard of care, was reducing omega-6 arachidonic acid and increasing EPA, exactly what we are testing. So this demonstrates beyond a shadow of a doubt that if coronary vascular disease is still the #1 killer, and this is the most modifiable risk factor, and you heard what Dr. Jim taught us about inflammation, if we want a healthy inflammatory response, we have to have a good omega-3 score. We have to have a good omega-3 index. So test, don't guess. 100% should take the test. 97% fail the test globally. 99% fail the test in the United States. Now, they put an entire health protocol premium together. It's more than just the balance oil, but their entire health protocol is designed to give you a Mediterranean diet in a bottle to balance the positive and negative bacteria in your gut, to balance the immune system with the right micronutrients, and then to calm the mind so that we can repair and rest and sleep properly. So that is the health protocol premium that Zinzino has created. And I wanted to land on this example of how people are not only sharing the product with people that they know and they love, but the number of clinicians and doctors that are part of our team is the biggest part of Zinzino's business in Europe. They have 3,000 doctors in Germany alone. Half of all of the business in the United Kingdom are healthcare providers. And I just wanted to show you a great example here of Dr. Warren Ross. He runs and owns the Crossroads Apothecary in Maryland. That's part of his practice. And so they've got a beautiful apothecary inside of the medical office. Look at how beautiful that is. You just, you love to see this, right? It's a giant wellness center run by a doctor who totally understands the role of nutrition. And there's the Zinzino Balance Oil Super Deluxe Premium bottle on the shelf. There's the smaller Zinzino bottle right next to Nordic Naturals. The olive oil was sold out. But it's just a nice reminder of all of the doctors here in the United States that are really starting to join Zinzino. And I wanted to end with this slide and then send it back to you, John. The company has performed so well. Over the last year, Zinzino has returned 187% year to date. And what this is telling people is that test-based nutrition is the future. That people want to know whether or not the supplements they're taking are working. That's number one. It also is supporting this business model of being able to bring these products and to bring this concept and this testing directly to people, because it requires a volunteer army to bring the world back into balance and to measurably move the dial on public health globally. Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. Wright, and thank you, Darlene, for allowing me to present.
What an incredible presentation. Thank you so much, Stuart. That is just the hottest 30 minutes you could ask for in terms of dramatic, life-changing information. And I can't even believe we're here. I'm still pinching myself when I found out about this, at the end of January. My first thought when I realized what was going on here with test-based nutrition, my first thought was, how have I not gotten like 10 calls about this company already? I just couldn't believe it, because they've been trying to get a foothold here in the USA for, a few years. I mean, they tried before COVID and ran into all kinds of roadblocks and obstacles. But in the meantime, they've been refining the story, testing 1 million people in Europe. And that has laid a super highway for us. All we have to do is get in our cars and fly down the highway now. It really is incredible. I mean, you agree with that assessment right there, Stuart, that we are perfectly positioned, right? I mean, we doubled the USA revenue in just the last 3 months. Did I get that right? I mean, you've watched it happen. And I mean, you were plugged in here almost a year ago, and it was kind of like, okay, how fast is this thing going to take off, and how long will it take us to put 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 healthcare practitioners plugged in here? And then how many, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, ordinary people like me, like Will, like Henry, and so forth, Harold, that can go and spread the word about this. I mean, what's your reaction to our timing right here?
Well, whoever tests the most people wins. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it levels the playing field in a way that is so profound. See the tests? Whoever tests the most wins. Our chief science officer, let me grab my test right here. He held this up and he said, "This is the Gutenberg press." And I was just stunned. It took me a second. He said, "You no longer need an intercessor. Do you understand what is happening?" And I was like, wow, it's so true. We went from public health policy, like daily reference intakes, that were wrong. They weren't personalized. To a food pyramid that was inaccurate. Remember, the base of your diet should be carbohydrates and bread. To a food plate, by that time, we've lost all trust in the government. No one's going to listen at all. And then we're telling people to take 2 fish oil pills and call me in the morning. Zinzino figured out that if you're my weight, right, you take 15 milliliters. If you're bigger, you take more. You test before and after. John, it's 10 times better than anything omega-3's ever done. My gut feeling is, right, the total addressable market, it's worth billions. Is it fragmented? Yes. There are 3 FDA-approved fish oil drugs, which means it works. 2 in America, 1 in Japan. And there's 3,500 brands. And then everyone says they're different. Zinzino is the Uber to the rickshaw. It's the iPhone to the rotary phone. Yeah, so the timing is absolutely perfect. And one of the things that I love is the customer-partner ratio. I've been here for a year, right? It's my first time building a business like this. Our partners have 22 customers on average per partner, and some of them have hundreds of customers. So I think the timing is absolutely perfect. Everyone I talk to, they either want to be part of our team to change the world, or they want to get tested and find out where they are.
Incredible. I love it. We're going to bring on a just amazing testimonial here. Henry, if you'll get ready to stand by here in 1 second. But Stuart, I don't know if you have to take off, but I just
I'm here.
I'm
here with you. Time. If this is okay. No.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because if we do have any questions at the end of this, I would love to be able to field those with you on the phone. So thank you so much for standing by. I want to share with everybody one more thing. And actually, Stuart, you don't talk about this, so I will. And it's concrete data that everybody can get. When you get your test report, you're going to see this report. It's a PDF. Everybody gets a cover sheet just like this. And the first 4 pages, changes start from the inside, the table of contents, and the key insights on page 4, before they give you your score. That's mine. That's 23-1. Stuart wasn't picking on me earlier, but he might as well have been. But on that page 4, under section number 4, we know the stats. Check this out. This is such a game changer. I can't even believe this is in writing. 95% of those, this is a document from Zinzino, 95% of those taking a balanced oil product daily have an omega-6-3 ratio in or near the safe zone of 3-1 after 120 days. It's in writing right there. My first reaction to that was, you can't even get 95% compliance of people to get on a product, let alone have 95% of people get the desired outcome. Do you realize the impact that data is going to have on the entire nutritional industry? So I had to share that with you.